It started with a notification at 3:47 a.m. Sarah Mitchell, a 32-year-old marketing manager from Portland, Oregon, was jolted awake by the familiar chime of her Ring doorbell app. Motion detected, front door. Now, here's the thing about getting a doorbell notification at 3:47 in the morning. You already know something's wrong. Sarah grabbed her phone, her heart already racing. Probably a raccoon, she told herself. Maybe a stray cat. That's what she hoped for as she opened the app and pressed play on the footage. But what she saw made her blood run cold. A man, standing perfectly still, just staring directly into the camera. Not at her door, not looking around, not doing anything. Just standing there, face illuminated by her porch light, eyes locked on the lens. Sarah's hands trembled as she watched. The timestamp showed he'd been standing there for 43 seconds before the motion sensor triggered. How long had he been there before that? She did what anyone would do. She woke her husband, Mark. Together, they watched the live feed. The man was gone. Just vanished. Like he was never there. Mark wanted to call the police. Sarah thought maybe they were overreacting. It was probably just some drunk guy who got lost, right? They decided to wait until morning. That was their first mistake. But here's what they didn't know yet. What they couldn't have known. That man had been studying them for weeks, learning their routines, their habits, the exact time they went to bed, the exact time Mark left for work in the morning. When morning came, Sarah checked the Ring history, just to be thorough, just to see if there was anything else. And that's when she found the other clips. 7 additional motion alerts from the past month, all between 3 a.m. and 4 a.m., all showing the same man, standing in the exact same spot, getting incrementally closer to their door with each visit. She'd been ignoring the notifications, chalking them up to animals or wind. But they'd all been him. For 4 weeks, this man had been visiting their porch in the dead of night. And they'd had no idea, because the next night, at 3:47 a.m. exactly, another notification. This time, Sarah was ready. She opened the app immediately, watching the live feed in real time. And there he was again. Same man, same position, same dead-eyed stare into the camera. But this time, he was closer, about 2 feet closer to the door than the night before. Here's where it gets chilling. Sarah, trying to be smart, used the Ring's two-way speaker feature. You know, that function that lets you talk through your doorbell. She pressed the button and said, her voice shaking, "I can see you. I'm calling the police right now." And you know what the man did? He smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not an embarrassed, oops, wrong house smile. A slow, deliberate smile that spread across his face like a crack in porcelain. Then he tilted his head, just slightly, as if to say, "I know you're watching." And then he spoke. His voice came through the speaker, distorted and crackling. "I'll see you tomorrow, Sarah." He knew her name. This time, they called the police immediately. Officers arrived within 12 minutes, searched the property, found nothing. No footprints despite the damp grass, no trace of anyone ever being there. The officer filed a report, told them to call if it happened again, and left. But here's the question that kept Sarah awake for the rest of the night. How did he know her name? The next day, Sarah couldn't focus at work. She kept checking the Ring app, watching, waiting. Every notification made her jump, even the ones showing their neighbor's dog or the mail carrier. Mark suggested they get additional cameras. One for the backyard, one for the side gate. Sarah agreed, but something told her it wouldn't matter. This man wanted them to see him. He was performing for the camera. That afternoon, Sarah did something she'd been putting off. She posted about the incident in their neighborhood Facebook group. "Has anyone else had strange visitors late at night?" she wrote, deliberately vague. The responses came quickly. Too quickly. 3 other neighbors, all within a 4-block radius, reported similar experiences. A man standing on their porches, staring at their cameras, always between 3 and 4 a.m., always silent until spoken to through the speaker. And here's the pattern that emerged. He'd visited each house exactly 7 times before moving to the next. Sarah's house was the 4th on his route. If the pattern held, he had 3 more visits left. But one neighbor, a woman named Claire who lived 2 streets over, shared something that made Sarah's stomach drop. On her 7th visit, the final one, the man had left something behind. A photograph, slipped under her door. A picture of Claire sleeping in her bed, taken through her bedroom window. The window that faced her backyard. The one she always left cracked open for fresh air. The 3rd night, Sarah and Mark didn't sleep. They sat in their living room, lights off. Mark holding a baseball bat, both of them watching the Ring app like their lives depended on it. 3:47 a.m. came and went. No notification, no motion detected. 4 a.m., nothing. 4:30 a.m., still nothing. At 5:15 a.m., as the first hints of dawn crept through their windows, they finally relaxed. Maybe he'd gotten scared. Maybe the police presence worked. That's when Sarah decided to check the Ring app's history, just to be sure. Just to review the past few hours of footage, and that's when she found it. At 3:47 a.m., there had been motion detected, but the app hadn't notified her. The footage showed the man now standing directly in front of their door, close enough that only his torso was visible in the frame. But that's not the disturbing part. The disturbing part was what he was holding up to the camera, a phone, with Sarah's Instagram profile open on the screen, her bio clearly visible, her full name, Sarah Mitchell, Portland, Oregon. The man in the footage then panned his phone slightly, showing Sarah's most recent post, a photo she'd taken on her front porch just 2 days ago, the exact porch he was standing on. The timestamp on the video. It had been recorded while they were sitting in their living room. He'd been there the entire time, 3 feet away from them, separated only by a door. But Sarah kept watching, because the clip wasn't over. The man lowered his phone and reached into his jacket. Sarah's breath caught. Was it a weapon? Was he going to try to break in? No. He pulled out a manila envelope, set it down carefully on the welcome mat. Then he looked directly at the camera one more time, pressed his finger to his lips in a shh gesture, and walked away into the darkness. Sarah and Mark stared at each other. The envelope was still there, right outside their door. Mark grabbed the baseball bat, checked every window, every lock. Then, slowly, he opened the front door while Sarah watched from the Ring app on her phone, ready to call 911. The envelope was exactly where the footage showed it. Mark grabbed it quickly and slammed the door. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Sarah at the grocery store, Mark at the gym, their car in the driveway. But the worst ones were taken from inside their house, through windows they didn't know provided sight lines, angles they'd never considered. Photos of them cooking dinner, watching TV, one of Sarah standing in their bedroom, visible through a gap in the curtains. At the bottom of the stack was a handwritten note on yellow legal paper. You have beautiful curtains, Sarah, but they don't close all the way. You should fix that, for your safety. Underneath, in smaller text, 3 more visits. Then I move on, unless you'd like me to stay longer. Sarah called the police again. This time, they took it seriously. The photos were evidence. The note was evidence. They set up a stakeout for the next night. Officers in an unmarked car parked down the street. 2 more hidden in Sarah and Mark's backyard. Everyone waiting for 3:47 a.m. The man never showed. But at 3:47 a.m., Sarah's phone buzzed. Not the Ring app. Her phone. A text from an unknown number. I see them. Tell your friends in the car to go home. We can try again tomorrow when you're alone. He was watching them, right now. Close enough to see the police. Close enough to count them. Sarah showed the detective the message. They traced the number, a burner phone, pinging off a cell tower 6 miles away. But that couldn't be right. He'd just texted about seeing the police car. He had to be close. Unless he wasn't here at all. Unless he was watching through some other camera. The detective had a horrifying thought. "Mrs. Mitchell, are there any other smart devices in your house? Baby monitors? Smart TVs?" Sarah's face went pale. "We have a Nest camera in the nursery. We haven't used it since our daughter outgrew the crib, but..." They checked. The camera was still active, still streaming, and someone had been accessing the feed remotely for the past 3 months. He'd been watching them from inside their own house. Sarah and Mark moved out the next day, stayed with Sarah's parents while they broke their lease and found a new apartment across town. They never returned to that house, not even to collect their belongings. They hired movers to pack everything. The police eventually identified the man through the Ring footage. His name was Derek Hillman, a former contractor who'd worked on houses in Sarah's neighborhood 6 months prior. He'd been accessing residents' social media profiles through neighborhood Facebook groups, learning their names, their schedules, their lives. He was arrested 3 weeks later after doing the same thing to another woman 2 neighborhoods over. He's currently awaiting trial. But here's what still haunts Sarah. During his arrest, police asked Derek why he kept coming back at exactly 3:47 a.m. His answer? "I wanted to see how long it would take for them to stop feeling safe in their own home." He was studying them, testing them, conditioning them to fear the very device meant to protect them. And it worked. Sarah still can't sleep without checking every camera in her new apartment. Still can't post on social media without making everything private. Still wakes up at 3:47 a.m. even though Derek is behind bars. Because here's what he taught her. The cameras only show you what's in front of them. They can't show you what's behind them, what's watching them, what's using them. But if you think that story was disturbing, you haven't heard anything yet. Question for you. What's worse than a stranger at your door? Someone you invited in, who never actually left. This story takes place in Austin, Texas, summer of 2022. The Martinez family, David, his wife Jennifer, and their 2 daughters, ages 7 and 9, had just installed a new Nest doorbell camera system, top of the line, multiple cameras, front door, back door, garage. They felt invincible, protected, safe. They had no idea that their cameras were about to reveal something that would unravel their entire sense of reality. It started innocently enough. Jennifer's cousin, Marcus, needed a place to stay. He was going through a divorce, needed to get back on his feet, and the Martinez family had a spare room. Family helps family, right? Marcus moved in on a Tuesday. He was quiet, polite, mostly kept to himself. Worked odd hours as a freelance graphic designer. The girls barely saw him. David thought he was a little strange, but Jennifer defended him. Family is family. After 6 weeks, Marcus announced he'd found an apartment. He'd be moving out that weekend. Everyone was supportive, maybe a little relieved. Nothing dramatic. Just time for him to have his own space again. He moved out on a Saturday morning. Took all his belongings, returned the house key, thanked them profusely. Hugs all around. The girls made him a goodbye card. Life returned to normal. For 3 days. On Tuesday evening, exactly 1 week after Marcus moved out, Jennifer was reviewing the Nest footage from the previous night. The camera had sent multiple motion alerts, and she wanted to make sure it wasn't a malfunction. She was scrubbing through footage from the front door camera around 2:30 a.m. when she saw it. The front door opening from the inside. Someone was leaving their house at 2:30 in the morning. She could see a figure, male, medium build, slipping out the front door, carefully, quietly, closing it behind them with barely a sound. Jennifer's heart stopped. She checked the date. This was from last night. Monday night, 2 days after Marcus moved out. But that was impossible. Everyone was asleep at 2:30 a.m. The alarm was set. The doors were locked. Jennifer kept scrolling back. Sunday night, 2:30 a.m. Same thing. Someone leaving through the front door. Saturday night, the night after Marcus moved out, 2:30 a.m. Same figure, leaving through the front door. Friday night, Thursday, Wednesday, every single night at 2:30 a.m., someone was leaving their house, even after Marcus moved out. Her hands were shaking as she pulled up the back door camera footage, and there it was. At 6:15 a.m. every morning, the figure would return, entering through the back door, which faced a wooded area where the camera coverage was limited. Someone had been living in their house, still was living in their house, leaving every night, returning every morning. But who and how? Jennifer woke David immediately. Together, they watched the most recent footage. The figure leaving at 2:30 a.m. was wearing a dark hoodie, face obscured. But then David noticed something. "Go back," he said. "Watch his hand when he closes the door." Jennifer rewound. The figure's left hand, pulling the door closed, revealed something on the wrist. A bracelet, brown leather with 3 metal studs. David went pale. That's Marcus's bracelet. He wore it every day. But that didn't make sense. Marcus had an apartment now. Why would he be sneaking in and out of their house? They checked more footage, going back weeks. The pattern had started about 2 months after Marcus moved in. At first, he'd leave through the front door around midnight, return by 5 a.m. As time went on, he refined his schedule. 2:30 a.m. departure, 6:15 a.m. return. Like clockwork. David wanted to call the police immediately. Jennifer stopped him. "Wait," she said. "If he's been doing this for months, where is he during the day? Where is he right now?" They searched the house. Every room, every closet, every cabinet large enough to hide a person. Nothing. The spare room Marcus had used, empty, cleaned. No trace he'd ever been there. But then Jennifer thought of something. Their house was built in the 1960s. It had an attic crawl space, accessible through a small hatch in the hallway ceiling. They'd never gone up there. It was just storage for Christmas decorations and old boxes. David grabbed a flashlight and the stepladder. His hands shook as he pushed open the attic hatch. The beam of his flashlight swept across the space. At first, nothing unusual. Boxes, dust, insulation. Then he saw it. In the far corner, partially hidden behind their boxes of decorations, was a small living area, a sleeping bag, pillow, a phone charger running from an outlet Marcus had installed himself, an outlet that shouldn't exist up there, snacks, water bottles, a small stack of books, and photos, so many photos. Taped to the rafters above the sleeping bag were hundreds of photographs, all of the Martinez family, taken from inside the house. The girls sleeping, Jennifer cooking, David watching TV. Family dinners, birthday parties, quiet moments they thought were private. But there was something else, something that made David's blood run cold. A journal, spiral-bound, at least 200 pages, all filled with Marcus's handwriting. David grabbed it and climbed down, his face ashen. Jennifer took the journal and started reading. It was a day-by-day account of their lives, written from Marcus's perspective. But the tone was all wrong. Marcus wrote about the family as if he were part of it, as if he were David. Entries like, "Today, my daughters had their school recital. I was so proud watching them perform. Jennifer looked beautiful. Our family is perfect. Made breakfast for my girls this morning. They love pancakes on Saturdays. Being a father is the greatest joy." Marcus had been living in their attic, watching them, and constructing a delusion where he was David, where this was his family. Jennifer called 911. Police were dispatched. But David had another thought. "He's going to come back," David said. "At 6:15 a.m. He always comes back." It was 5:47 a.m. They'd been searching the house for over 3 hours. The police wanted to wait, set up outside, catch Marcus when he tried to enter. But at 6:12 a.m. the back door camera showed motion. Marcus was early. But he wasn't alone. The footage showed Marcus standing at the back door with 2 coffee cups. 2. Like he was bringing one for someone, like it was a normal morning and he was coming home to his family. Then he paused, looked directly at the camera, set down the coffee cups, and smiled. He knew they'd found his hiding spot. He knew the police were there. The smile wasn't nervous or guilty. It was satisfied, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Marcus walked to the front door, rang the doorbell. David and Jennifer, standing in their living room with 2 police officers, watched the ring footage in real time. Marcus stood on their porch, looking into the camera, and spoke. "I just wanted to say goodbye. Thank you for letting me be part of your family. These past few months have been the happiest of my life." Then he did something unexpected. He pulled out his phone and held it up to the camera. On the screen was a photo album, hundreds of pictures. Marcus photoshopped into family photos. Marcus's face replacing David's in birthday pictures, vacation snapshots, Christmas mornings. He scrolled through them slowly, deliberately, making sure the ring camera captured each one. "I made these," Marcus said, his voice cracking with emotion. "So I could remember, so I could feel like I belonged somewhere." One of the officers moved toward the door. Marcus stepped back. "I'm leaving now. I know I can't stay, but I needed you to understand. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just wanted to feel loved, to feel like part of something." Marcus walked off the porch, got into a car parked 2 houses down, a car they'd seen in the neighborhood for months, but never questioned, drove away before the police could stop him. They found him 3 days later, parked outside an elementary school, watching kids play at recess, arrested him for burglary, stalking, unlawful surveillance, and a dozen other charges. During his psychiatric evaluation, Marcus explained everything. He'd lost his family in the divorce. His wife got custody of their 2 kids, restraining order. He wasn't allowed to see them. The isolation broke something in him. When Jennifer offered him a place to stay, he saw an opportunity. He could be part of a family again, watch children grow, feel needed. And when the 6 weeks ended and he had to leave, he couldn't let go. So he didn't. The attic crawl space became his home. He'd leave at night to go to his actual apartment, the one he'd rented to maintain the illusion, work, live a normal life. Then return every morning to hide in the attic and watch the family he'd convinced himself was his. The psychologist's report noted that Marcus showed signs of delusional disorder and severe attachment issues. He genuinely believed, on some level, that he was protecting the family, that his presence was benign, that they needed him as much as he needed them. But here's what haunts Jennifer the most. In the journal, Marcus had written about moments she didn't remember, conversations she'd had with David, arguments, private moments, because he'd been there, in the attic, listening, learning their lives in detail no outsider should ever know. Marcus is currently serving 8 years for burglary, stalking, and unlawful surveillance. He'll likely be deported after his sentence. He's not a U.S. citizen. The Martinez family moved 6 months later. They couldn't live in that house anymore. Couldn't sleep knowing he'd been up there, watching for months. They don't use smart cameras anymore. Too many memories of scrolling through footage and seeing him, slipping in and out like a ghost. Jennifer still wakes up sometimes at 2:30 a.m., still listens for footsteps, still checks the attic in their new house even though she knows it's empty. David had the girls tested by a child psychologist. They seem okay, but how do you explain to a 7-year-old that someone was living in their house, watching them sleep? You don't. You just hope they never find out. But there's one detail that still bothers David, one thing he can't explain. In Marcus's journal, The last entry was dated the morning of his arrest. It read, "They're going to find me soon. I can feel it. But it's okay. I gotta be a father again. Even if it was just pretend. Even if they never knew. For a few months, I had a family. And that's more than I deserved." The psychologist said it showed remorse. David disagrees. He thinks Marcus is still out there somewhere, looking for another family, another attic, another chance to pretend. And somewhere, someone else's doorbell camera might be recording him right now. Now, are you ready for the final story? Because what you're about to hear has no explanation. Before I tell you this story, I need you to understand something. What you're about to hear isn't solved. There's no arrest, no satisfying explanation, just a grandmother who vanished, and footage that raises more questions than answers. This happened 8 months ago in suburban Phoenix, Arizona. And the family involved? They're still trying to understand what their cameras recorded that night. This is the story of the Whitmore family, and the grandmother who came to visit one last time. Rachel Whitmore's mother, Diane Patterson, had been missing for 6 days. The 71-year-old woman had vanished from her assisted living facility in Scottsdale on a Tuesday afternoon. One moment she was in the common room watching TV. The next, she was gone. No sign of struggle, no witnesses. Security footage showed her walking out the front door at 2:17 p.m., getting into the passenger side of a dark sedan, and driving away. The facility called Rachel immediately. Rachel called the police. A silver alert was issued for a missing senior. Diane had advanced dementia. She couldn't remember her address, couldn't remember her daughter's phone number. On bad days, she couldn't remember she had a daughter at all. For 6 days, Rachel and her husband Kevin searched, put up flyers, posted on social media, contacted every hospital, every police station, every shelter within a 100-mile radius. Nothing. On the 7th night, a Sunday, Rachel was sitting in her living room, staring at her phone, praying for any news, when the ring notification chimed. Motion detected. Front door, 11:23 p.m. Rachel's heart jumped. Maybe it was the police. Maybe they'd found her mother. She opened the app. Standing on her porch, clearly visible in the infrared night vision, was her mother, Diane Patterson, alive, wearing the same floral dress she disappeared in, staring directly at the camera with an expression Rachel would never forget. Not confusion, not fear, blank, completely blank, like looking at a mannequin. Rachel screamed for Kevin. Together they watched the live feed, hands shaking. Diane stood perfectly still on their porch, not knocking, not ringing the doorbell, just standing there. For 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a full minute. "Should we open the door?" Kevin whispered. Rachel was already moving. She threw open the front door. The porch was empty. No one there, just the cool desert night and the sound of distant traffic. Rachel stepped outside, looked left, looked right. Their street was quiet. No cars, no people, no sign of her mother anywhere. But the ring footage was still recording, still showing Diane standing there. Rachel could see herself on the camera now, standing in the doorway, looking around frantically, while the footage simultaneously showed Diane standing 3 feet in front of her. Kevin came out. "Where is she?" "I don't know. The camera shows her right here, but—" Rachel reached out, waving her hand through the space where the camera showed Diane standing. Nothing, just empty air. They reviewed the footage frame by frame. At 11:23 p.m., Diane appeared, not walking up to the porch, just appearing. One frame showed empty porch. The next frame showed Diane standing there. She stood for 1 minute and 47 seconds, then vanished between frames. Kevin called the police. Officers reviewed the footage and checked the property and nearby streets. Nothing turned up. Then Rachel checked the motion history. Every night since Diane disappeared, there had been a motion alert at 11:23 p.m. Short clips. Same porch position, same duration. Rachel had dismissed them as false alerts: insects, wind, heat shimmer, common causes in desert night footage. But now, replaying them carefully, each clip showed the same figure: her mother. Rachel began waiting nightly, watching live before 11:23 p.m. Each time, the camera showed Diane. Each time, the porch was empty. Kevin recorded with his phone from outside. Other neighbors checked their cameras covering the street. None captured anything unusual at that time window. Only their doorbell camera showed her. On the 10th night, Rachel used the two-way speaker. "Mom, can you hear me?" No reaction. "Mom, it's Rachel. Please, where are you?" Then Diane moved her lips. No audio, just static. But the words were readable. "Already came home." Police requested a technical review of the device logs and footage integrity through federal cyber specialists. The official finding was cautious and limited. There was no sign of file injection, replay attack, or remote stream replacement. The clips were recorded locally by the device sensors at the timestamps shown. One investigator, speaking informally and off-record, told Rachel, "We don't publish theories on cases like this, but sometimes families report unusual device events right before a missing person is located or recovered. Treat it as a signal to keep looking, not as an explanation. No supernatural claim, no conclusion, just caution." On night 14, the footage changed. Diane appeared, but now she was angled sideways, pointing east. Rachel followed that direction the next morning, driving into the desert roads beyond Apache Junction. 3 hours later, she found a dust-covered abandoned sedan matching the facility footage description. Police responded. Search teams followed tracks into a ravine. They found Diane alive, severely dehydrated, but alive. Diane survived, but remembered nothing. No suspect, no usable forensic evidence, no identified driver. After she was found, the nightly footage stopped. Rachel later showed Diane the clips. Diane became distressed and said, "That's not me. I wouldn't go there. I don't like that house." Kevin later researched the property history. The previous owner, Patricia Morrison, had died in the home the year before they bought it. Public photos showed a strong resemblance to Diane. Similar build, hairstyle, and facial structure. Enough that low-resolution night vision could blur the difference. Kevin didn't call it proof, just unsettling. Diane now lives with Rachel and Kevin. The doorbell camera is still installed, still active, still recording every night. They've thought about removing it, more than once, but they never do, because part of them wants to know, and part of them is afraid not to. Every so often, without warning, a motion alert appears at exactly 11:23 p.m. Rachel doesn't rush to open those clips anymore. Sometimes she lets them sit there for hours, because she's learned something the hard way. Not every notification is information. Some of them are invitations. Most nights, it's nothing, just shadows, heat shimmer, drifting dust. But sometimes, it looks like her mother, standing in the same spot, facing the door, perfectly still, and sometimes it doesn't. The case is still open, the explanation is still missing, and the camera is still watching.